Ukraine's president has signed a law that brings down the age of conscription from 27 to 25 as he aims to reinforce the fight against Russia's invasion. Volodymyr Zelenskyy has warned that an additional 500,000 recruits are needed to repel Russian advances. Ukraine has struggled to boost troop numbers, with the conflict now in its third year. So this mobilization comes as NATO foreign ministers meet in Brussels to discuss long-term support for Ukraine, and that includes a proposal for a $107 billion funding plan to roll out over 5 years.
Moscow needs to understand that they cannot achieve their goals on the battlefield, and they cannot wait us out. With Minister Kuleba, we will address the current situation and Ukraine's needs both now and for the future. We are transforming NATO's comprehensive assistance package into a multi-year program of assistance. We are helping Ukraine move closer to NATO standards on everything from procurement or logistics. And we are supporting Ukraine's reform efforts to bring Ukraine ever closer to the alliance.
Let's speak to Charles Stratford. Charles is joining us from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. So a new security agreement between Finland and Ukraine signed today, Charles. What more do we know about this?
That's right. A new security agreement signed here in Kyiv between the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the Finnish President Alexander Stubb. Now, this agreement is valid for 10 years, and according to a statement on President Zelensky's website, I'll read you out some details for it. It's a long-term agreement described giving military financial assistance as well as cooperation in political, financial and the humanitarian sectors, and help with reforms as well. We understand that Finland is very much keen in eventually Ukraine becoming an EU and NATO member. It also goes on to say that the agreement will include helping to rebuild Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Of course, that energy infrastructure that has been so slammed in recent weeks by this escalation in attacks from Russia. The agreement also will include funding, around another $200 million worth of funding by the Finns. I think it's another example of these bilateral security agreements between various countries and Ukraine that have been signed since that G7 meeting last year, bilateral agreements also with countries including Germany, Canada and the UK. And I think it's particularly interesting because, of course, Finland's ascension to NATO is so recent, one of the two most recent members, along with Sweden, in recent months. And of course, Finland shares this gigantic border with Russia, more than 1,300 kilometers long. So, yes, security for Ukraine right at the forefront of Finland's ideas on security because of what's at stake for it as a country bordering Russia too.
So what else can we expect from that NATO meeting, or what are we likely to see in terms of Western military support?
Well, we're going to get lots more pledges. The real focus, though, of this meeting, we understand, is discussing this plan to try and bring together funding and supplies of weapons, not only by NATO countries, but by other countries, under one umbrella. Most notably, this is a group called, or refers to the group called the Ukrainian Defence Contact Group, or the Ramstein Group. It's around about 50 countries, including all NATO countries. There is a fear amongst NATO leaders becoming clear that because of potential developments in respective NATO members' countries with respect to the political leadership, most especially some anxiety about the possibility of President Trump getting back into the White House, that NATO members are wanting to take the kind of work that the contact group does and put it under some sort of NATO umbrella to guarantee that those weapons and that money gets through. There's also going to be discussion of more funding, at least $100 billion worth of more funding. Now, we're not going to get any signed agreements with respect to these two main aspects of this meeting that I've just described in the next couple of days, but this is part of ongoing discussions, we understand, towards a large NATO summit happening in Washington, D.C., scheduled for July.
Okay, thank you. Charles Stratford reporting from Kyiv. Thank you.